Learning navigation in an iOS app is crucial, even so if you are building out a complex app. Now I want you to hit that subscribe button because in this video we are going to talk about navigation with the help of the coordinator pattern. So let's just jump right into it. Navigation is one of my favorite parts of an iOS app. I am always thrilled to build out some complex navigation if the app requires it. And with the help of coordinators, we will learn how to do this in today's episode. Now, before we jump right into it, let me just remind you that I do have a Dev Factory mentoring session / teach you what you want to learn about iOS development course. So it's not a course, it's just a simple mentoring session. And you could apply at rebeloper.com/mentoring. Now, that out of the way, let me just jump right into navigation and why it is very, very important how you do it in your app. And let's just jump right into it. So if you go in the links down below, in the resources, you will find this GitHub repository, and make sure that you clone or download, and not the master branch, but the classic branch. So make sure that you are on the classic one, because that's where we are going to start off, and we are going to build out the coordinator one. You will see the next branch if you are watching this video, but for now just download the classic branch just to start off. And one piece of advice, take a look at Spark UI. Now we are going to use Spark UI intensively here because this as Navigator, what we are going to talk about, is a part of Spark UI. Okay, so let's go back here and clone or download whatever and open it up, and you should be able to see something like this. Let me just move away. So there are navigators and there are view controllers. First of all, take a look at the README, and we will go through this not so conventional tutorial through the steps that I have laid out. We will not code as much here. We're not going to especially type, but we are going to give you some code that you could use. And before we do that, I'm going to give you the knowledge of why you should use coordinators and how you should use it, and what's the problem with the old navigation view controller, or what's that. So let me just start off by telling you about the problem. And if you just open the README file, you could just read through it, but I will glance through it so we get a major idea of what we are doing here. So the best way to introduce coordinator is probably to introduce the problem it aims to solve. As an iOS developer, we've all crossed paths with some code where a UIViewController creates the next one in the user flow. So basically you create a new view controller, initialize it with the next view controller, and you call self, that is the UIViewController that we are here, and navigation controller question mark, because that could be an optional, and dot push view controller, that one that we want to push, animate it true. So you are most probably familiar with this, and if you just came for learning how to navigate, then this is half of it, and the second is just self present UIViewController animated with a completion, and that's when you just push up a modal. So if you are done with that, if it's okay and it's enough for you, then that's just it. But we want even more. If we want to build out more complex apps, then we need even more. So in this code, in this kind of code, one view controller must know about create, configure, and present another. So let's just move that even back. This creates tight coupling in our application. You have hard-coded the link from one view controller to another, and might even have to duplicate your configuration code if you want the same view controller shown from various places. So again, if you want to show it from another one, you just create let new view controller equals next view controller, and you just push it. And that is really, really bad thing to do. Even worse, all of this involves a child telling its navigation controller what to do. Our first view controller is reaching up to its parent and telling its parent a second view controller. So it's telling it to present the second view controller. So that's really, really bad, because it's very, very tightly coupled. Now the view controller, I'm always a fan of separation of concerns. The view controller should control views, nothing more, nothing less. It shouldn't worry about navigation, networking, and so on. So that is what we are going to build up. Well, not networking, but navigation. This is when the coordinator pattern comes in handy, keeping a clean architecture and separation of concern. Your app flow is controlled using a coordinator, and your view communicates only with a coordinator. Now, this is important. The view controller communicates with the coordinator, and the coordinator will actually present the new view controller. For larger apps, you can even create chart coordinators, which is a good thing to have, or subcoordinators that let you carve out of a part of the navigation of your app. For example, you might control your account creation flow, let's say login, control for your subscription flow, or using another controller, a coordinator. So, what is the coordinator pattern? I know I'm just talking a little bit too much right now, and it's not the same as my usual tutorials, but bear with me, we will get into the code shortly. So what is the coordinator pattern? The coordinator pattern was first introduced to the iOS community by Sarush Kanlu. I believe I didn't butcher that, hopefully. So Sarush, in his blog and during his presentation at the NS Space Conference. The idea of coordinator pattern is to create a separate entity, a coordinator, which is responsible for the application's flow. So the coordinator is responsible for that flow, not the separate UI view controllers that present another view controller on themselves. The coordinator encapsulates a part of the application. The coordinator knows nothing of its parent coordinator, but it can start its child coordinators. That's also available, and we will see how to do that. Now, coordinators create, present, and dismiss UI view controllers while keeping the UI view controller separate and independent. Yeah, just what I told you. Similar to how UI view controllers manage UI views, coordinators manage UI view controllers. And here's a brief explanation of how this works. So we start the coordinator, and this is where we end the coordinator. And the coordinator will launch the first view controller and end the first view controller, present or just push the second view controller and pop it. So this is basically a diagram of how a coordinator, a basic diagram of how it should work. Now you could add, instead of, let's say, the third view controller, another sub or child coordinator and do the same. So this is very, very simple structure. So what is a coordinator? Now a coordinator is an object that encapsulates a life cycle that is spread over a collection of view controllers. Now bear in mind that the most important word here is the life cycle, because the coordinator handles pushing and popping the view controllers. And here is Sarush's definition. So what is a coordinator? A coordinator is an object that bosses one or more view controllers around, taking all of the driving logic out of your view controllers, which is a good thing. And moving that stuff one layer up is going to make your life a lot more awesome. And believe me, it did make my life a lot easier. So what is the pattern? The coordinator pattern is really quite simple. And again, from the mouth of Sarush, ultimately coordinators are just an organizational pattern. There's no library you can use for coordinators because they are so simple. There's no pod you can install and nothing to subclass from. There's not even really a protocol to conform to. However, in Swift, I believe that there are benefits for defining a protocol to use. So let's dive into that. So make sure that you have downloaded the demo project. And if you just take a look at the Swift packages, you can see that here we have Spark UI. And let's just go into the definition of our Navigator. And never mind, I will just explain this in just a moment. Let's just jump into the plain old definition of this class. Okay, so here we have our Navigator. So coordinator, Navigator in Spark UI, I'm calling it Navigator because, yeah, we are navigating. So what I told about coordinators, it's the same for navigators. And from now on, we are going to call the coordinators navigators. Okay, now this is a class and it has child navigators, a navigation, which is basically a UI navigation controller. So here you can see that we are linking to the frameworks to the UIKit framework. Okay, and it has and must have a start function, and we will see why that is important. And we see that we have a did dismiss child function, which basically goes through all of the child navigators and dismisses the one that we have just dismissed. Because let's say you have a coordinator, or rather a navigator, and you have some view controllers to present, and then you want to present another navigator, let's say the auth, the login navigator. And when you are just finished with that, you want to remove that navigator from the parent navigator's children. Okay, so that is basically it. And if you take a look at more in depth at these files, so these 4 files, you will see that there are much more protocols that handle basically some default values like dismissing, popping, presenting, and so on. So yeah, go ahead and take a look at them. But for now, let's just go all the way back. Let's just close the navigators and let's build and run our project. So hopefully I selected iPhone 11. Yes, that's right. And let's take a look at the example project. And as you will see, all of this actually works. So nothing really happens, nothing crashes. It's built out the classical way how we should navigate. So here we have a tab bar controller with 2 tab bars, the feed and the home. And here we have some buttons, and we can present our profile. We can dismiss from this sheet. We can push our profile. We could go back, present auto navigation. We could just go sign up. We can go back and just slide down here, and we can present a classical sheet and then select another one. And as you can see, there are already problems here. And let me just go through them. Let me just build and run again so you can see that what the problems are. So first, the classic sheet, so the model, when you just present a view controller. Now, let me just go on. This is what it does. It just feeds that in the background and just pops this up. Let's just do another one. So, I dismissed that. So let's present the second classic sheet. It does the same. Let's dismiss this one and that one. Okay, that looks really, really nice. But Apple, for some reason or another, doesn't really like us to use navigation inside of these sheets. So that is when we present our auth navigation. As you can see, we present a UINavigationController. And if we will take a look at the code, that is what we are doing here. We are creating a UINavigationController, presenting this view controller on that. So if we go on to sign up, it just slides really, really nice. And if we go back, we go back. Now, the problem here is when we dismiss this, the animation is kind of lost. We don't have that nice, really nice swipe down gesture or slide down gesture. So let's just see, tapping on dismiss, it kind of disappears, and that's a bad thing. Now, if we try to present the auth navigation again, you see the rounded corners are gone. Something's wrong here with the animation. You don't really see the background view controller. Even if we go present a new sheet, it's kind of ugly. Yep, so if we dismiss it, again, it kind of blinks and disappears. Not the way we would like to. So as Navigator solves all of that, and we will see that. So yeah, those are my main concerns with navigation, and of course coupling. So that's that. Okay, so this works, but not quite really. So let's fix that. Let's use a navigator. So let me just stop this and let's take a look at our view controller. So here we have our main tab bar controller where we are going to present these. There's a feed view controller, a home view controller. We are encapsulating them into a nav controller, so 2 of them, adding view controllers as the view controllers of our tab bar, and I'm just selecting the index as 1. This is a part of Spark UI, but you could just use a simple integer of 1. Okay, so that is how we are presenting it the old-fashioned way. Okay, so with the navigator way, we want to create these navigators. So let me just talk a little bit about navigators. And But before we do that, let me just jump real quickly here, so you can just let's see. Let's see, Auth View Controller. As you can see here, we have our buttons, button 0, button 1, button 2, and all I do is do the controller, create the controller, and push it with the navigation controller. Here we dismiss, here we present. Yeah, just go ahead and take a look at the code in detail. It's just the classical old way of pushing and presenting view controllers. Now let's dive into navigators. First of all, what is the structure of this app? Well, we need two base navigators like the home navigator and the feed navigator. And then on top of that, we want to separate the auth navigator. Like we want to have a separate navigator for that because yeah, that's just navigating between login and sign up and so on. So let's just build out, first of all, the feed navigator. And the feed navigator, it's just a simple class that conforms to the navigator. And you could just simply override the start. Now the start is basically just letting the navigator know for which UI view controller to start off with. And that is pretty simple. It is, we are creating a feed view controller. We are setting the tab bar item here. And most importantly, we are passing on that navigator to our view controller. And if we just jump to definition, you can see that we have a weak var reference of an optional navigator here. And we will use that in the other navigator. But yeah, just so you know, we have to kind of push this navigator into the controller. And that's really simple. Navigator.controller.navigator equals self. Okay. And finally, we are going to present this. Now, I have in this navigator framework, I have made it much easier to present these. It's just simply navigation and you just call display or whatever. Now, display means is basically just push view controller animated false. So we're just displaying it. So let me just jump right into that definition. As you can see, it's just push view controller, the view controller, and animated false. What this means is just going to push that first view controller onto the navigation stack without an animation. And that's great because when you just want to present a tab bar, you don't want to slide it in. It's just there. Okay, that's the feed navigator. Now let's take a look at the home navigator because we do a lot more stuff on the home navigator. So as you can see here, we have our controller. We just displayed it, set the navigator as the self, so the home navigator. And by the way, if we just jump into the home view controller, you can see that, okay, we are adhering to the home navigator, but we have a lot more, not just the simple navigator, and we will get back to that also. Okay, so finally, because we do know that on this navigator, this home navigator, we will going to append a new child navigator, and that will be the auth navigator. So we need to be aware when that starter view controller is popped on that navigator. And that first one is auth view controller. So the auth navigator's base view controller is auth view controller. So we need to set the navigation's delegate to self, and then the home navigator could apply the UI navigation controller delegate. And we are listening for navigation controller did show view controller animated. So basically we are fetching the from view controller, the one that we are navigating away from. And if that is the auth view controller, so we need to if let unwrap it, then we called it did it dismiss the navigator view controllers, this view controller's navigator, because yeah, every view controller will be assigned a navigator. And this, again, if you recall that this did dismiss is going through all of the child navigators of that current navigator, and it's removing the one that we want to remove. So we don't get all of those, we just clean up basically. Okay, now we have talked about the start, that's okay, and yeah, we just presented our home view controller. Let me just add that into just go into the main tab bar controller. So how do we actually couple this navigator? Because you saw there's nothing UI view controller or UI tab bar controller there. And that's a good thing. We are separating the concerns. So what we want to do is just comment out the view controllers. And by the way, let's just comment out everything, even the navigation controllers. So let's just do that. And uncomment the feed navigators. So we just initialize these feed navigator and home navigator. And yeah, it's yelling at us that this doesn't exist. So what we want to do first is start the navigators. Now again, starting the navigators is just basically telling the navigator, okay, this view controller is your base, your start view controller. And for the feed navigator is the feed view controller. The home navigator is for the home navigator, that's home view controller. And finally, we want to add the list of the view controllers for the tab bar controller. And those are from the feed navigator's navigation, which is basically a UI navigation controller, and the same goes for the home navigator. So yeah, that is how easy it is to create two navigators and add them as UI tab bar controllers. So let's just build and run. And by the way, I'm letting you know this example project because this covers 99% of use cases. So yeah, now we have it. It's kind of the same, but now it's on top of navigators. How awesome is that? Okay, so let's move forward. What do we want to do? So let's feed navigator. It doesn't really do much. We do have sorry, not that feed navigator. Feed view controller. It doesn't do much. Let's just jump to that definition. We have that navigator, and just basically that's it. But we do a lot more on the home view controller. So that's where we will take a look at next. And let's just take a look at the home view controller first. So what do we actually want to do here? And let's just scroll all the way up. As you can see, we have a navigator, and we have 4 buttons here: present profile, push profile, present auto navigation, and that's important, and present first classic sheet. Now, let's take a look at the first one. So present profile. And if we just scroll all the way down to the reactive observable, well, this is what's going to happen in this closure. This closure is triggered when we tap on that button. It's reactive stuff. Yeah, you just use whatever you want with that. So with the controller created, we set the controller's UID. So yeah, I'm already teaching you how to push data into our profile view controller or whatever controller. And here we have a UID that is a string, and we just present, remember, this is present profile, so we want that model, okay? And present that profile view controller. Now, this is much easier with the navigator because we are going to build out a present profile UI with a UID. So this is just one line of code. You don't create the profile view controller, you don't add the UID right here. So what is this present profile? So let's go back to our home navigator and just scroll a little bit down. And you can see that I have created a protocol, profile navigatable, which means that it could navigate, it is navigatable to a profile. And it has 2 functions, present profile, as you recall, and push profile. So these 2 need to be implemented because we are adhering to this protocol right over here in the extension of our home navigator. And well, what did we do here? Well, we are just creating our profile view controller, setting the UID, which is added right over here, setting the controller's navigator to self, because yeah, as you recall, we need to push it into all of the view controllers, and just presenting it. Now, this present is kind of a strange one because it's not the usual, let me just jump there. It's, as you can see, it's not the simple usual UI kit present view controller. Now, this will present a sheet that is powered by, what's it called? Swift Entry Kit, and it has a lot of features. It's really nice to have. Go ahead and take a look at the options that I have here. It's really nice. And if you have any questions, go ahead and you could just sign up for a mentoring and I will guide you through this sheet. What you need to keep in mind is that this sheet, this is just going to be presented on the navigator. has the ability to present navigation controller. So no more just flashing away that sheet. It will be A-OK. And while we are here, let me just talk a little bit about the push profile. It's the same, but now rather than presenting the controller on the navigator, we are grabbing our navigation and pushing the controller. It's the same. So here we have a lot of options. If you just start typing in, you will see that we can push with an animation. Yeah, it's basically, let me just jump to definition. It's basically push view controller animated with true, but basically we always, most probably we want to set this to true, so I just set it to true. Okay, so let's go back into our home view controller. And finally, let's change this code, this hard coding here, into a simple navigator.present profile. And yeah, while we are at it, let's just remove this pushing of our view controller and just send push profile. Now again, this will be available because the navigator conforms to profile navigator, and that's where the loop comes to a halt. So let's just go back to our home navigator again. So you can see clearly, here we have our protocols. So we are adhering to that protocol, so we need to implement these functions, and all of the creation is made right over here, nowhere else. So what else do we have on our home view controller? Let's just scroll a little bit down. And as you can see here, we have on the button 2, present auto navigation. But before we jump into that, let me just show you this button 3, present first classic sheet. Now again, with the classic sheet, it's kind of messing it all up. So I have just added a simple navigator present first classic sheet. And if we just jump there, go there. As you can see here, we have our protocol for that classic sheet navigatable. Make sure that your navigator controls to that. And yeah, just present. And if you don't really like the sheet that I was talking about, or if you just simply want to use the classical way, you just call present controller, and it needs to have animatable into it. So animated, true. So if not, then we are just going to present the controller. There is no animated involved here because, yeah, we will see that you can just choose if it's animate in slide. Yeah, there are a lot of options there. Okay, so yeah, so that's that. We want to present our first classic sheet view controller, and on top of that, we want to present the second sheet view controller. And we will unlock that in just a moment. But for now, just know that we are just presenting it right here. Navigator present first classic sheet. And how cleaner is that? Let me just move. Yeah, this is the new one. So yeah, I will talk about that. It's just one single line of code. It's really clean. No coupling here. Okay. Now let's just talk finally about child navigators, child coordinators, child navigator, and that is the auth navigator. So let's jump into our auth navigator and let's take a look at what is this about. So basically what has really changed is that we need to declare a parent navigator. So the parent navigator will be the home navigator because yeah, we will need to reference it when we are going to remove this navigator. And under the start, of course, we declare our auth view controller, set some title here, set the navigator to self. Don't forget that. And instead of displaying that controller, we are setting it as root because now it's a separate navigator and it's not the base navigator like what we have on the tab bar. So if you are asking it, that's why we are setting it here as root. So controller.setRoot for self, this is the current navigator, with the parent navigator that we have just declared. How awesome is that? And now we can let sNavigator take care of the deeper work. Now here, as you can see, we have a push sign up, so it is sign up navigatable, new sheet navigatable, present a new sheet, and again we are just simply presenting a new sheet with the present Okay, so that's really quite the same, but now we are in a different navigator. Okay, so let's just go back into our home navigator and see how do we declare that. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's not like simply presenting or pushing a new view controller, but it's doable. So we create a child navigator, old navigator. That's okay. We set the child navigator's parent navigator to be self, and that's really how we couple those two together. And then on the child navigators, we append this child navigator. Again, this child navigators is part of the home navigator. And then we just start it, which basically means we just present that old view controller. Okay, so that's old navigatable. Let's just go into our old view controller. And in this old view controller, you can see here we have our sign up view controller. We're just pushing sign up. It's kind of the same. Now, let me just comment this out, comment that in. Again, yeah, let's just talk about dismissing, because this framework also allows dismissing or pushing, popping, right out of the box. So just call, let me just comment this out, navigator.dismiss. So that's how easy it is. And we will see in just a few moments, there is also a navigator.pop. So dismiss is for sheets and pop is for, of course, navigation control. So when you are pushing view controllers on top of another. So yeah, let me just comment all of this out, because yeah, this just presents a new sheet. And present new sheet, let's just jump right over there. So you can see controller, new sheet view controller, just presenting it. How awesome is that? And it's all moved away from our view controller. So we have that out of the way. We have our old view controller cleaned up. What's up next? Let's take it one by one. So classic sheet first view controller. So this is the view controller that is kind of pushed up as a sheet, and then we just want to have a classic second sheet view controller on top of that, or we want to dismiss. So dismiss, you already know that. And this is a classical view presentation, so you want to use dismiss animated, make sure. And here we have a present second classic sheet. By the way, just on the home navigator, all of this is available. So let's just jump to that definition. As you can see, classic sheet, second view controller, we set the navigator, and we just present it animated because we want to use it as a classical one. Okay. Yep, let's go ahead and clean up the second one. And this is just a simple dismiss. So I will do that real quickly here. Feed view controller, that's okay. Home view controller, I believe we managed all of that. Main tab bar, new sheet, profile view controller. Okay, let's take a look at the profile view controller, because here we have a back button and the dismiss from sheet. Now, these will work, well, one of them will work, one of them will not, because maybe the view controller is pushed, or maybe it is shown like a sheet. Now, if it's pushed, then we can use back. If it's just presented as a sheet, then we are going to dismiss it. So, yeah. This is how easy it is. I just told you that we will have a default pop function on the navigator. And of course, you already know this dismiss. Again, because this is just dismiss, not animated, we are using Swift Entry Kit. Okay, that's that. And the sign up view controller, the same thing. So we are going to go back or dismiss. It depends on where. Of course, you are going to either do one of these. Okay, let's just comment both of them out and just use the old one. So this is really good advantage of our S Navigator. So the framework that I built inside the Spark UI. So I believe I changed everything. So we transitioned to the Navigator way of presenting our view controller. So let's just test it out. So here we have our feed. That's okay. And the home. So let's go with the easiest one. So present first classic sheet. And this is how it should be. Let's present the second classic sheet. Okay, let's dismiss this one and also dismiss the classic sheet. And by the way, these also are swipeable if you want to check out that. Okay, now let's present the profile. Now let me just go back, and as you can see, this is a sheet. It didn't go back, it's just presenting it. Okay, let's just dismiss the sheet, and if you just tap on back, it doesn't really do anything because we are not in a navigation stack. Okay, so let's just slide that down. Now let's go to push profile, and as you can see, it pushed. Now if we tap on dismiss from sheet, of course it will not work. If we go and click on back, that's how it is. And by the way, here we have our data that is pushed into our view controller. So let's go and tap now under the home. Okay, now here comes the fun part. Present auto navigation. So as you can see, here we are presenting it. Oh, sorry, we need to change that because I saw that it's not presenting it in a controller way. So under home view controller, yeah, I did forget that. So under home view controller, we don't present it as usual. Let's just comment that out and present auto navigation. If we jump to that definition, we see that we are using this appending of the child navigation. So that's how it should be. So let's bring it run again, and hopefully now we get that awesome UI navigation controller like inside a model. So let's just go that. How awesome is that? Let's now navigate, sign up. Let's go back. We already seen this, but most importantly, now I can slide it down and dismiss it. Or I could just tap on this dismiss button and it will just slide down. It will not just fade away instantly. How awesome is that? And we could just also present a new sheet. Now remember, this is kind of replacing the actual sheet. So we cannot really present two sheets at a time. So that's one caveat there. Okay, the only caveat here. So yeah, again, this is the auth. If we just tap on new sheet, it kind of replaces it. Okay, and finally, let's go to sign up, and we can also, yeah, let's just tap on that back button, but we can also dismiss it from any inside like in the navigation stacks view controller. So let's tap on dismiss here, and it's going to dismiss it. Now how awesome is that? Now I know there has been a lot of talk here and of course a lot of code also, but go ahead and take a look at the example project. I will upload this to GitHub with the branch of coordinator, so make sure to check that out. If you want to start, you can use the classic one branch, but here with the final project, you have 99% of the navigation cases handled. Now you know how you can easily handle complex UI view controller navigation with the help of the coordinator pattern. Now I want you to hit that notification bell because in my next video, I will be talking about UI view controller transitions with the help of the Hero GitHub repository. While you wait for that, make sure to check out these videos as well too. I talk a lot about UIKit, Swift in general, and as usual, I will see you in the next one.